Welcome to ITMO. ITMO stands for Instant Transformation Moment. And the reason we call it that is because we use the fast-acting 3Q method to activate spiritual intelligence. Now today we're going to spend a bit of time on looking at the top 10 features of spiritual intelligence. We use the 3Q method to experience spiritual intelligence. So I'm going to refer to an article I wrote up on this topic called The Top 10 Features of Spiritual Intelligence. Onto the screen now, and you should be seeing it in a moment. So this is the article, and you'll find this article on the SQ website, sqi.co. So I'm going to read a bit from this article. Top 10 features of spiritual intelligence. Number 1, secular spirituality. As an innate dimension of intelligence, SQ represents a secular form of spirituality that everyone can access. SQ methodology is a faith-neutral form of spiritual practice that is consistent with contemporary secular culture while still being compatible with religious belief. Now, there's a link here that says more, and if you click that link, you'll go to another article which goes into this item in more detail. Item number 2 of the top 10 features of spiritual intelligence is emotional balance. Spiritual intelligence preempts and remedies emotional reactivity and restores emotional balance. By activating the qualities and capabilities of the higher self or the soul, spiritual intelligence prevents emotional reactions from taking over. SQ thus restores equanimity. Item number 3. Spiritual intelligence brings to life a deeper sense of meaning and purpose by virtues of the qualities and capabilities of the soul in the form of wisdom, compassion, integrity, joy, love, creativity, and peace. Consequently, spiritual intelligence is the means of personal and professional success and fulfillment. So I'm continuing to read from this article. Item number 4 in the top 10 features of spiritual intelligence. It's important to note that SQ increases EQ and improves IQ performance. In addition, SQ activates whole brain capabilities that exceed the sum of the part brain capabilities represented and EQ. Spiritual intelligence therefore results in high performance. Now this article goes on to itemize other aspects, other features in the top 10 features of spiritual intelligence. Productivity growth, human rights, scientific foundations, ancient and modern, global sustainability, and number 10, the third millennium paradigm. I'm going to read what it says here under the third millennium paradigm. The emergence of secular spirituality based on spiritual intelligence represents a new paradigm that succeeds the first millennium paradigm, theism, and the second millennium paradigm, materialism. As the next stage in the evolution of collective consciousness, SQ therefore represents the new paradigm of the third millennium. So if you want to read more about the top 10 features of spiritual intelligence, please go to this article on the SQ website, and you'll find this article listed in the right-hand column of the blog under recent posts. So this is been a brief excerpt from that article. I just want to read number 6 here of the top 10 features, human rights. The twin poles of attention represent the basic operating system of human awareness. Knowing how to navigate between the twin poles of attention, from ego to soul, is essential for quality of life. Consequently, SQ represents necessary knowledge for everybody. Education in spiritual intelligence is therefore a fundamental human right. I think that's important to note. We all have the right to know how we. It's just that we're not told this in our education system and in the mainstream secular culture in which most of us are brought up. So it's a human right to understand how we operate. So this article, after this item in this article, there's a connection to another article which goes into this in more detail. So please refer to this article if you want to know more about the top 10 features of spiritual intelligence. And as I said, you'll find it on the SQ website. So now let's look at the method, which is the method we use to activate spiritual intelligence. And as I said at the beginning, it causes an instant transformation because it's such a rapid method. Now let me show you a few slides about this method so that I can explain it in more detail. So this symbol here represents 3 dimensions of intelligence: IQ, EQ, and SQ. And this symbol opens out into the twin poles of attention, the object pole of attention and the attention. At the object pole is everything we're aware of, thoughts and emotions and beliefs and self-image. And at the subject pole of attention is simply awareness itself, which is what we are. So we're the one aware of objects of attention. And awareness itself, when you identify with it, is called being the soul. And when you identify with being what you're aware of, thoughts and emotions and so on, that's called being the ego. And so what you see on the screen now is the human operating system, the ego, or being the soul in every moment, one or the other. The only exceptions are if you go beyond SQ to TQ, transcendental intelligence, in which case you stand prior to both poles of attention. So apart from TQ, or in deep sleep, dreamless sleep, this represents your operating system, what you see on the screen now. You're either being the ego, identified with your body and mind, or you're being the soul, identified with consciousness itself, which is aware of the body. Now, the key to spiritual intelligence is to shift from ego to soul. And fortunately, there's a very rapid way of doing that. So let me now explain this rapid method of shifting from ego to soul and therefore activating spiritual intelligence. This rapid method has 3 steps: notice, feel, and be. And when you perform these steps in the way I'm about to describe, you immediately shift from ego to soul, and it can take less than a second, which then shifts you from the false self, the ego, of the soul, and activates your spiritual intelligence. So I'm going to describe these 3 steps now: notice, feel, and be. And we can all experience our spiritual intelligence together by following my description and therefore experiencing this rapid shift from your ego self to your true self, the soul. So step 1 is notice, and that simply means to remind yourself of the human operating system, to remind yourself that attention has 2 poles: what you're aware of, self. So that's simply a reminder. And we need to remind ourselves because we forget, don't we? We so often get bound up with our thoughts and emotions, and we forget I'm the one aware of my thoughts and emotions. We get identified with what we're thinking and feeling, don't we? We say things like, I'm angry, or I'm sad. Whereas the truth of it is that I am aware of an angry emotion, or I am aware of a sad emotion. But I am the awareness of these things. I am not these things. I am not these emotions. Well, we forget that. So step 1 is about reminding ourselves that attention has 2 poles. Step 2 is feel. And in this step, we get to feel what it's like at the subject pole as awareness itself, as the soul, as the true self. And the way we perform step 2, feel, is to use a breathing technique. So I'm going to describe the breathing technique now, and we can all do the breathing technique along with me as I describe it. So bring your attention to your breathing now. Now find that still point at the end of the in-breath when you're neither breathing in or breathing out. You don't have to hold your breath. In fact, it's important not to hold your breath. You'll find there's a still point in the breathing at the end of the in-breath when you're neither breathing in or breathing out. Did you find that point when the breathing pauses at the end of the in-breath? Okay, so now feel what it feels like in that pause in the breathing. How does it feel for you in that pause in the breathing at the end of the in-breath? Feels peaceful, doesn't it? Yeah? Did you find it feels peaceful? Just check it out again. There's a peaceful feeling there, isn't there? Now remember not to hold your breath. It's just a natural pause in the breathing that you can discover for yourself just by following the breath. And you'll discover that in that pause in the breathing, at the end of the in-breath, there's a peaceful feeling. Now the reason why it's peaceful there is that in that pause in the breathing, the mind also pauses, the thinking pauses. Just observe that for yourself. Isn't that right? The thinking pauses when the breathing pauses. Unless you hold your breath. If you hold your breath, the thinking doesn't pause, because holding your breath requires thinking. So just allow that natural pause in the breathing to occur at the end of the in-breath, and feel the peace there as your mind pauses. The reason why it feels peaceful there is that it's the thoughts that introduce the disturbance. So when the thoughts cease, still point in the breathing, you feel the peace that's underneath all thoughts that normally thoughts cover up. Now we still have one step to go, the third step, which is be. So I'm going to introduce the third step when we reconnect with feeling that peace in the second step. So just feel that peace again in the still point in the breathing at the end of the in-breath. And when you feel that peace there, move to step 3, be. Be that peaceful feeling. That just means to allow the peaceful feeling to go all over your body and mind. And now just take a look around. Just confirm for yourself that you are now being consciousness itself. You're being the field of consciousness within which thoughts and emotions and perceptions may continue to arise, but you are now being the consciousness of your thoughts and perceptions. You're being the field of consciousness within which everything that's perceived and felt and known is emerging, but you're simply the consciousness of these objects of attention. So you're now in the position of the soul being consciousness itself. And this is the meditation space. And notice you can get here in a second or less when you get expert at using this 3-step technique. So this is a rapid meditation technique, in contrast to traditional forms of meditation, which usually take an extended period of time. So in this position, you have access to all the qualities of spiritual intelligence. Not only peace, but joy and compassion and love and creativity. All the qualities of spiritual intelligence naturally emerge when you're located at the subject pole, being consciousness itself, the true self, which is activating your spiritual intelligence. And steps, notice, feel, and be, can be done at any time in association with any activity. It doesn't interfere with whatever else you might be doing, because these steps can be taken in a second or less, and you can continue to be engaged in conversation or any other activity. So you can do these 3 steps while you're walking down the street, or when you're waiting in a queue at the supermarket or at the traffic lights. And so you can enjoy your spiritual intelligence anywhere at any time. So instead of allowing your mind to run riot and go around in circles thinking thoughts that you've had a million times before, you can simply rest in your spiritual intelligence enjoying all the qualities of the soul in association with any activity. So I do hope you'll experiment with this technique whenever you remember to. So we're just spending a few moments now together at the subject pole of attention. Now notice that all of us from all around the world here on this broadcast are experiencing our spiritual intelligence together. We're experiencing the peace and the joy and the love of consciousness itself. And this is the same consciousness in the case of each of us. There is only one consciousness, and we all participate in it when we activate our spiritual intelligence. And so now, as a global community, we're all experiencing the peace and joy and love of intelligence as one. And this is how we raise global awareness, by teaching more and more people how to activate their spiritual intelligence. So I do hope you'll experiment with this technique whenever you remember to throughout the day. Notice, feel, and be. All it takes is to feel that peace at the end of the in-breath, and immediately into the spiritual dimension of intelligence. And then move to step 3, be that peaceful feeling. Be in consciousness itself. So you see how easy it is? When you understand how this works, it's extremely easy to activate your spiritual intelligence. And that's why we call this technique instant transformation, because you instantly transform from being the ego, identified with your thoughts and emotions, to being identified with consciousness itself. So just notice how simple this is, and how it's something that you can do whenever you remember to. And of course, it's particularly useful when your ego is activated, when you're identified with reactive emotions, fear, sorrow, anger, any of those reactions that the ego frequently has. Instead of those reactions, you can elevate your consciousness and shift to the subject pole of attention, which gives you access to the peace and joy and love of your true self, instead of the reactive emotions of your ego. So please experiment with this technique throughout the day when you remember to. And there's a video on this. If you look in the description above this video, you'll discover links to the SQ website, where you'll find a longer video explaining how to experience spiritual intelligence, which gives you a bit more context. So I hope you'll join us next week at the same time, Wednesday at 12 noon GMT, London time, so we can all experience our spiritual intelligence together as one from around the world. So I'll say goodbye now, and I hope to see you next week. Bye for now.